that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
I'm in Milan, Italy.
Okay, and how long you been there for?
Ooh, 17, 18 years now. Yeah, it'll be 18 years this year.
Wow. And did you go there to stay, or?
No, I didn't originally. I was living in London for 4 years before that, and then came over here, decided to go back and study computer animation and learn Italian and do something interesting. And ended up staying, yeah.
For you to take on the role to be to do the work that you're doing now, obviously it was not the right time until it was the right time for you, right? But you always knew there was something there that you. It's almost like I want to say there was something tapping at the door, but that means nothing really, does it? Do you know what I mean? But there was something there.
There was definitely something there, and when I was a child, more so probably. And then sort of through adolescence and my young adulthood, managed to turn it off almost completely until I actually was pregnant with my daughter. And that's when things started getting a little bit more metaphysical in my experience. I think that's part of maybe being connected so intimately with another being. And then circumstance in my life forced me in some way to come back to meditation. And it was only then that skills started to come back online, really.
Yeah, so, well, where did it begin for you then? Let's just sort of talk about that point. When, where were you in your life for that voice to come through?
Okay, so let's see. I'd been studying self-realization topics for a little while. I'd been meditating, and during my meditations, I did notice that there was somewhat involuntary movement, but through the people that I was in community with or the people I was talking with, they all said just relax in meditation. Don't resist anything. Don't really force yourself to be any certain way. So I felt my head moving sometimes. And at that point, I kind of went this is maybe not a direction I want to be going in, because I had at that point already discovered Abraham Hicks. I knew Esther Hicks' story about her head moving in meditation and how it came on for her. So I suppose from when that started, and I'd done some written channeling in that same period, sort of like a stream of consciousness channeling, which turns out was actually Vagrein as well at the time, telling me there's no reason to rush, don't worry about it, like you can do what you want and everything's fine, it's your choice. I did kind of put it off for another couple years. And that energy continued to occur in meditation. And I don't know, experimental or just very reluctant. I basically got fed up. I got fed up of having this sort of this sort of call or challenge or insistence from this energy that it was even possible. And I went, you know what? It's not possible. I'm going to show you. Energy, whatever you are, I'm going to show you. It's not. That's not my path. And instead, it was.
Yes. Yeah, well, I've just remembered the words I think that maybe you used before, which was a deep desire not to be weird.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to be your most mainstream possible, accepted by mainstream society person available. And, you know, interestingly, I still am extremely down to earth, if not more so since I've started channeling. Because, you know, I find that there's like, one of the main messages I think of Vagrein is that we are human and that we are able to be here as the physical beings that we are, as well as having our spiritual experience. So
I find your work really powerful. Actually, do you know what? I find it really deep. You're very good at, you know, going into those deep, you know, really mind-bending understandings of what the possibility of this might even be, perceived at this time by our understanding of what we're able to perceive, obviously, and your willingness to want to look into those areas, which is you know, commendable, because most do not want to go down that path. And I think even when we do go down the path, it only leads us, well, it has only led me back to present moment, if it's done anything.
yeah, absolutely. And that is this sort of main focus. That's where, you know, much like Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, that really is sort of where you're being pointed back to at all times. Yeah.
When did you start to accept what was coming through was something greater than just, you know, your subconscious in a sense?
Well, really, the first time I listened to the recording. So basically from the first sort of recorded channeling session, which was just me lying down on my bed for 20 minutes or something like that, it was really hard to understand how the voice had changed and sort of the message that was coming through, because I didn't have recollection. I do sort of go into, I guess, what might be considered full trance when I channel or something like that. And I played it back to myself and I went, oh, okay, either I've gone completely mad and I'm completely crazy and like that needs to be looked into, or this might be something. So what I did was that for the next probably about 2 weeks, I did channel regularly on my own, and I didn't mention it to anybody. But then by coincidence, I had come across a bunch of people who were very, very interested independently in channeling at the time. And probably about the third or fourth day I was spending time with them, I got the guts up to kind of say like, hey guys, I've been having this really interesting experience for the past couple of weeks. So from the time I first started channeling to the time I channeled to a group and then was absolutely confirmed that it was something, was about a two week window.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
this was pretty intense, pretty, you know, there wasn't much time to sort of prepare for this then, but when you'd accepted it in a sense. And I get it, you know, many people watching this who are sort of in the closet with this stuff as well, you know, it's how people will, you know, react to me. How's my friends going to react? How's my family going to react? I mean, that is still there, and you've been through it, and what's it like on the other side?
Well, you know what's interesting? There wasn't much of a reaction. Yeah, and my experience was that the idea that I'd come up with in my mind of what reactions might be, even from sort of the most skeptical people in my lives, were really very mundane, to the point of me being almost disappointed to not having had an accurate perception of how that would be. You know, I imagined disaster scenario or people completely, you know, saying like, well, we can't spend time with her anymore or whatever it was. And really nobody cared. It's like I'd shifted to a reality where it was just accepted.
That's beautiful. And I see that more and more. Do you know that? I actually do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that for sure, 100%. I know there's others who have gone through, really difficult situations with family and friends, and but that's not the case nowadays for what's going on now. It seems to be it's talked about in all sorts of like genres out there, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You hear the word channeling, don't you? And could you use the word channeling and maybe use a different word, do you think, for what you do? Or how would you describe what you do?
Well, channeling is sort of like the typical word, but then Vagrein goes into explain that we're all actually channeling because you're not actually connected to your physical body at all, other than the ability of you to call in your soul on a daily basis to be you consistently. So maybe sort of like tuning into a radio station or something like that is a better sort of idea, but then maybe that's what the word channeling comprises of as well, switching the channel to something else.
Yeah, and I think so many people just channel that greater part of themselves all the time, and I call it the soul, but that's just a word for some. I might want to call it the higher self. I mean, I'm using words out of context to what they are, meant for. But I mean, I don't think we understand what it is. This all that is.
Yeah. Yeah. All that is exactly the right term. Yeah.
Right. There's another term for it. Yeah. Because it's so only you can experience it, and when you've touched upon it, you'll know. But even to be able to bring through that greater part of you, all answers lie within, don't they? I do feel that even for us all individually, we all have the power to listen to our gut feeling, don't we? And we.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting. The word that you're using, "you," is has many facets, right? So most people identify themselves with the individual, but I think when you sort of are expanding past the individual, you say, "Yes, I'm channeling myself. I'm channeling me." But your perception of what me is much larger. It's like the collective you, the collective me, the collective us. That is the one, right? The one thing that is. So yeah, I think it's a correct term. It's always you, but it's also always all of us.
Yes, and we're going to get into that as well, because you talk about this a lot in the book as well. Your website
is www.jpherman.com.
Okay, and obviously we've got the book as well that's coming up on the screen, and I think this is your only book, Seeking Ends Where Sharing Begins.
Yes.
Fantastic book, great content in there. Gosh, how long did that take to bring through? How long did it take to get published?
Well, that book is actually the first 6 months of channeling that I did, which was then it was then instructed to go through each session and find every category for each sentence for every session, and then broken up into the categories, into the chapters of the book. So what you're reading is not a direct transcript from the sessions. It's the sessions cut up like a puzzle and put back together, which was also super interesting to play with, because it turns out that Vagrein doesn't transmit linearly. They do, however, transmit full transmissions, maybe not all in one setting. So if they're talking about health, the chapter on health is very complete, but it was not one setting in which that was brought through. To put it together probably took another 6 months, and then I self-published it. So just to get it out as fast as possible.
Congrats for self-publishing, because that's an achievement in its own right, just to put that out. Fantastic. And on the website, obviously you offer a number of different services on there as well. I just want to mention the website as well. You've got the book. Yep. You've got courses as well. What kind of courses do you do?
I'm actually running a self-love course at the moment with a group of people. It's a 15-week course that is now in an active mode. So that means I do have one-on-one, well, not one-on-one, group participation with me on a weekly basis, but that'll become a passive course after the end of the 15 weeks in May. I do coaching. I also do pranic energy healing, which came online after the channeling as well. And and just one-on-one coaching as well.
That's right. You life coaching as well. And I mean, all these are, because was the life coaching in your it was in your field before, I think, before the channeling started. Is
Yes.
that right? Yes. Yeah.
I was doing life coaching as well before, yeah.
But isn't it amazing that you've done all that, and actually with what you're doing now, it all fits in, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah. In fact, my coaching packages now have they have two channeling sessions in them, because generally by the time we get to the sort of like the third or fourth week, people are very interested in sort of busting through, whatever limiting beliefs they have. And Vagrein just has a very direct way of pinpointing exactly what it is holding you back by having you inquire on yourself the right questions. So people come to that channeling session, it's already in a coaching package, and then the client and I will go on and discuss what's happened with the channeling and how to integrate and work with that and work through it.
And the name you're mentioning there is the collective group that you bring through.
Yes, Vagrein, yeah.
And just say that one more time for us.
Well, I'm pronouncing it the only way I know how to read it because I've never heard the name. It's Vagrein.
Vagrein, so yeah. I thought you were saying something like that. I was like, that's a different type of name. That's right, yeah, Vagrein. Okay, we will get into Vagrein as well. On your website, you've got services on there, so you do one-to-one sessions as well?
That's right.
Okay, and this is obviously worldwide. There's no restrictions there.
Absolutely.
And I'm guessing with the pandemic just behind us, kind of behind us right now, that's the way it went with what you're doing. But I guess then as well, channeling in Italy, for example, and you do speak fluent Italian, it's still a sort of smallish community compared to other countries.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's very little request, and I haven't actually had anything in my field pop up of someone else who's doing it. And even sort of like that's not necessarily where like an audience I'm targeting. I'd love for that to become an organic thing that would come to this. And interestingly, I can also channel in Italian. They speak Italian much better than I do. But yeah, but here it's not necessarily as popular or accepted as it is in other parts of the world.
But you're there for a reason, aren't you? Have you ever questioned why you stayed and why you're there doing the work that you're doing, or do you not question that?
I don't question it too much. It does feel like I feel like sort of we get assigned postages, we get assigned a position. And it does feel sort of like grid point-ish, so when people are like, oh, you should go somewhere else, or there's more market somewhere else or something like that. I've never really had a pull to move from here, at least not yet. And I kind of really choose my life experience based on instinct. So not really question it, but I know there is definitely a purpose for it.
Absolutely there is, and there's a lot going on in that region right now, which we'll get into a bit later on with where we're going. So, and that's from love, I say that as well, and peace, right? So with discernment then, how did you ever have any issues with discernment in the sense of like testing yourself out, making sure that what you were bringing through, was right for you?
Yeah, absolutely. At the very beginning, I think I was much more present in the sessions because I was constantly having sort of like my conscious ear open for things that made me uncomfortable, topics or opinions, sort of listening in. And I would listen back to the recordings a lot more frequently at the beginning. But what I tended to notice was the same thing that, I noticed with some other channels was the consistency of the message and the consistency of the energy behind it, which was always very much based upon people following their own free will, people learning to love themselves completely, and everything that was apart from fear. So I was very concerned at the beginning that, you hear some sort of channels or prophets that there would start to become doomsday messages or stuff like that. And that was something I didn't, even if it was coming through, ever want to share. That was something that was not comfortable for me because it's not based with my values of, what's actually serving humanity. Is it serving to tell people like bad things are going to happen? I don't think so. So at the beginning, I definitely did make sure that there was none of that kind of energy coming through. And then, my trust and my relationship with Vagrein expanded. They're quite, they have a bit of a sense of humor, and they did tend to tease me a little bit at the beginning. So, play little tricks on me to prove that it wasn't me doing it, that it wasn't me talking, things like end sessions on exactly certain timings, or say something and then something would happen in the room that would be directly connected to what they had said. So things like that were more frequent at the beginning, and I think it was more a way to build up my trust in them. because I'm sure they could sense that there was some sort of reluctancy to just let go completely, which is what I do now. I mean, there's no point in arguing with them.
No, right, yeah, no, it's incredible, isn't it, how it works? And okay, where are they? I want to say where are they from there, but does it really matter? What is their background? If you could just describe any way to just sort of describe what this is that you're bringing through.
Okay, well, they've been very specific on not putting any focus on themselves. And even the word themselves is a really, it's a word that we're using that's being used simply because it's the closest thing to understanding, but it's neither individuation or group. So they talk in plural, but that's so as to not make you believe that they are an individual. And by the same account, they don't claim to be from any place or in any place because they are non-physical. They don't claim to have a past or a future because they do focus on simultaneity or parallel reality. So they can't be from any time or space. So we're really talking about sort of a very different existence.
And the sort of mechanism as well for going into the trance state for yourself. I mean, for everyone, it's different, right? Some even walk through a door, right, in their head, and others have got a breathing method. What is it for you, just very briefly, the way that you sort of connect?
Yeah, for me, it's as if this is something I guess I've had since I'm a child, because I remember I did have a problem with hearing things. Like I would hear a pencil rubbing on paper, and to me that would start to sound like something that wasn't a pencil rubbing on paper. But it seems as if we do have senses beyond our physical senses, and mine is connected to the closest thing that I could explain would be hearing. So when I'm starting to go into trance, what I do is I almost open up an ear or like a hearing capability that will then start to bring through the first sentence. And the first sentence is very much the same all the time. It's very much similar all the time. It's like good evening, good day, or good now. Often they say good now because they know that like I have international people on the other end of the call. So and then they'll have like some opening thing. So if I let that first sentence through, that's when I'm gone. Like I can go. But my mind doesn't actually do anything except look for that hearing opening. And then once that's done and I release into that, the channeling just begins on its own.
That's so interesting. So anyone that wants to come for just maybe they've just got even relationship problems, and I talk about that all the time because I know that's the big one. Whatever it may be, business issues that they've got,
Yep.
whatever self sort of growth issues, or I don't think there's anything really that you say on the website that you won't sort of help people out with, whatever issue that they're going through. Yeah. So and with health as well, is that something that you can discuss as well? Or?
Yeah, I actually used to have chronic illness myself, so that's a topic that I have touched on personally. I had, I think, for 20 years, I had like the equivalent of like a milder version of lupus. So it was very systemic and across the board, and had a lot of like day-to-day reality stuff that I had to deal with, which has since been released. Now, I don't think that that's something that makes me qualified necessarily to help anyone with medical advice. I wouldn't, but I do know that that when people do have medical problems, they will be in a seeking mode to try and resolve them. What Vagrein tends to do and does do very well is help people to pinpoint where their power is in that aspect and what they can do for themselves, emotionally and also at times physically, to be more comfortable with their current reality. And often what ends up happening from that is symptoms do alleviate themselves, and people do have or can have miraculous recoveries if that is part of their life blueprint and if that's what's actually serving them. Otherwise, people can continue on with illness or discomfort, and that might also be what's serving them, but at least their perspective will have changed on what they're facing.
Yeah, and of course that's in alignment with whatever treatment they're going through medically as well. This is just
absolutely, yeah,
a fantastic way to sort of heal the body or whatever your issues you might be going through as well from this perspective as well, which I think it's all connected, to be quite honest with you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's something interesting you mentioned as well. This was maybe in the book, I don't know. This was in the sense that, you know, even our bodies have a soul contract. Everything's got a soul contract.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, much of the book talks about how your body is actually your friend. Even if we unfortunately in our collective have this conception that there's a perfect body, that perfect health equals perfect body, and that you're responsible for perfect health and a perfect form. But Vagrein proposes that the body is actually always sort of a litmus to you and leading you to new things, leading you to new relationships. You know, maybe you meet a doctor who needs to meet you to have a new discovery. You know, we're all interconnected. So someone having some sort of imperfection or what's considered an imperfection in their body, it's not necessarily for you that you're unwell, right? So we can't sort of like go around and go like, well, if I was more in alignment, I'd be perfectly well, because it's not really like that. We're all in this together. And so we can't possibly know why our body is doing what it's doing. We can only accept that it's doing that and make ourselves more comfortable and open to the lessons it's giving us.
If you've sort of, you know, lost your sight or some major part of your body, it's so difficult to see it from that perspective, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And interestingly enough, one of my clients is in the process of losing his sight and did meet with Vagrein last year, and Vagrein did change that perspective. So it's interesting you brought up that specific example, because that is something that we've touched on directly, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it almost feels like, you know, if with sight, I mean, you know, logically, I tend to think that, well, obviously, you know, it's to see something from another perspective or to open up something else, but it just feels so, you know, such an excuse to say that. But I know that's really is the only results of something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm sure there's truth in that. I'm sure there is, because if you spoke to the individual, if they could be honest, if depending where they're at, right? I'm sure that everything happens for a reason, but it sucks. or does it? I don't know. Maybe if I was going through it, maybe eventually, maybe I wouldn't see it as just that. But there's a resistance, isn't there, to accepting what you're going through, isn't there? Sometimes, a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And also accepting that there's resistance is part of the game. You know, like that really is, it's okay that you think it sucks. Like things suck. And that's part of being human. And being in a space where something sucks and then the next day waking up and like seeing something beautiful and it's sucking a little less, you know, like that's what we're here for, to see the contrast of like how we can be who we are even if things suck.
Well, that's another side to the work, isn't it? Well, I should be asking really, what is some of the most important aspects of the work that you're bringing through, do you think, of the teachings of this group?
Well, I'd say that like what I've noticed in the pattern of what they share is that, well, you know, they're really very excited about us coming to a space of unity consciousness and that doesn't mean amalgamation of like identity. That doesn't mean we're all going to be the same, but it does mean that we're all going to have like respect and view of one another as if we really are different cells in a human body, let's say. You know, they'll often talk about like how the finger, or I don't even know if this is true that they'll often talk about, but that's what's coming through right now. Like the finger is connected to the toe. They're different. They have different functions, but you know, the toe's not like trying to kill the finger. You know, they know that they have to live together. And that they serve each other in very important ways. You know, the hand puts food in the mouth so that the toe can have nutrients, and you know, the toe moves you around the world. So when we understand that really that's all that's going on with us, then we're going to be in a much better place, because how could we not be?
Absolutely. Well, you've talked about this before, unification versus separation. It's so, I mean, look at what we're going through now, right? Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, let's go there. Let's just go there, because okay. Now, and this gets into reality creation talk as well, I think, mm-hmm. in some respects. What is their take on what we're going through right now as a collective in regards to the Ukraine?
Well, the second book that was meant to be coming through, or that was meant to sort of be worked on, which is put on pause, and they'll have their perfect timing for whatever reason it was put on pause. It has been, was meant to be called a call to change. And this title would sort of underline their entire philosophy, I guess if you want to call it philosophy, but their explanation of the reality of Catalyst and our creation of Catalyst, and how it serves, because Vagrein's energy is constantly trying to explain to us, like, what is actually a good thing. Like, why is what's happening in the world right now a good thing? Well, what they would say, and maybe they'll even say it tonight if I'll be doing some channeling later, but what they would say is that we as a collective are choosing separation still. And we are choosing it so that we can get to a point where we decide we no longer want to choose that, right? Because we'll end up in a state of such discomfort that eventually it just won't be an option to continue choosing it. At which point we'll realize that unity is more pleasant and and comfortable for everyone. And even to the point of let's say the main players in this conflict, they'll explain that these players are actually in soul contract with all of us. We have agreed to, let's say, have villains, or we have agreed to have people to push up against and hate, let's say, so as to become so so uncomfortable to come to a point where we suddenly realize that, hey, you know what? It takes far less energy to love this villain, than it does to hate them. And when I love them, I feel better. And when I feel better, I can serve more. And when I can serve more, I can impact other people to feel better. So it's a chain that once you as an individual have made the choice, I'm not going to continue placing blame, shame, hatred on any other being. And I'm going to see everything as God, or as all that is, or as source, or as whatever term is preferred by anyone. Because it's all the same. Then if each individual comes to that, then we're fine. But there's no convincing someone else to come to that. And often the only way for an individual to come to that is through discomfort. So when you see lots of catalyst, you can, with a higher perspective, go, actually, this is really good. It's really good that there's so many things one after the other, because people, yes, they're going to get angry first. They're going to push back first. They're going to throw themselves into the fire first. But on the other end of that, in the exhaustion and I just want to hang out with my kids and I just want to, smile, you come back to just loving. And so that's why they would frame it as a positive thing. And that we've chosen it. We're choosing this.
Yeah. I guess, if an invading force is coming into your country from the Ukrainian perspective,
yes, absolutely.
This is not how to get to this, to even hear what we're saying.
Yeah.
Where's the off switch? Do you know what I mean? Or maybe I don't. Who knows, right? But you have to make a stand. I mean, if that's going to happen, we live in this shared reality. You've got to do something about it, right? You can't allow that to happen. Well, you can, but there's obviously lots of ramifications for that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
With what you're saying, which is lovely. It seems to be more of like the afterthought rather than like, could this ever be applied in the moment now? I mean, these people are where they're at. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And so what I would share personally to that, and again, I'm sort of just trying to mimic what Vagrein would say here, is that, again, we're all players on a stage, right? So when you're thinking of the people who are directly affected right now in this conflict, compassion is the only response for these people. Absolutely. And at the same time, the majority of us are not directly in the conflict, in survival mode, right? So it then becomes the responsibility for absolutely everyone else who is not in survival mode. And this is not just conflict in war. This is also, starvation. This is also abuse. This is also, child abuse. All the big suffering problems of our world. If you're not actively in it actively you in the survival mode, it then becomes your responsibility to find the space of loving all that is. Because if you can then find the responsibility, then you have the centering to be able to make choices that are not based on fear. I mean, we've seen even what like the general public, what happens to the general public when they start to make choices based upon fear. They defer their autonomy to government. They make choices about, let's say, the bodies of other human beings. They make choices about, who's allowed to do what and who's not allowed to do what, that are not choices that are based in love, and they're not choices based upon the free will or respecting the free will of all beings as autonomous sovereign beings. Now, I know that the excuse for that is fear. So you've been told a story that is terrifying, and your human reaction is fear, and so you then excuse questionable choices or behavior because you think you're doing the right thing to protect yourself. But that means undercutting your entire spiritual experience and only living from your perceived mortal human form. If we're only living from our perceived moral human form, then we're really not heading towards unity, because the only thing you can do is fight your neighbor. That's really all you're left with. So if you're not directly in the situation, my belief is that our responsibility is to raise our vibration and to focus on neutrality and love and try to see all the angles and not understand necessarily the problem. There are definitely things that are wrong, or right on a moral level, but to continue to sort of radiate the energy of this is a toe, right? Let's say you're villainizing something. This is a toe that is not behaving the way, in a healthy way. So how do we make this healthy? How do we help the rest of the body to heal? How do we, fight an infection? Well, you don't fight an infection by creating another infection to fight the infection. I mean, maybe we do as humans, I'm not sure, but I don't know the science. But in theory, the body will naturally produce more white blood cells, which is basically enveloping and healing and curing the part that has problems.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure for a lot of people, even just to send love, even just to want peace, is a fantastic vibration to come from, because maybe that's just even peace within an appreciation of everything that we have. I mean, when you see people having nothing and having been torn away from their country, and this has happened before, but maybe not on such a large scale, right? And maybe we need to care more when it does happen, but on this type of scale, you just appreciation. And for some people, it causes them to go out there and find their purpose within a time like this, whatever that may be,
That's right.
Because boy, there's a lot of people that need help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do think that Catalyst only exists to put you in enough discomfort to make this choice. So you don't necessarily, and Vagrein's even said, you don't need what did they say? You don't need the occasion to rise to the occasion, right? You can actually just decide that from now on, you're going to make choices in your day-to-day life that are more loving. You're going to smile at the woman at the checkout counter because maybe she's had a really terrible day, and maybe she's not going to fight with her husband when she gets home. And maybe he's not going to, drink too much and then drive his truck later. You don't know what the roll on is of those very, like you said, small acts that then, become what our world is.
Yes. And I know that we've all got to go down this tunnel together, right?
Yeah.
And whatever's going to be is going to be. And I've not had anyone on that's talking the end of world stuff, because that's just not but they all the channels that I get on all talk about a big change that's coming.
Yeah,
and this is the beginning of it, they say.
Yeah. And it's been in the cards for a while. Again, not sort of like end of world stuff. Vagrein, if anything, would be very much positive about the whole thing. And the ball is rolling, but we've seen that. Like, this is not something you need a channeler to see. You just need to kind of look at, okay, this is what's happening. But the thing is what we can remember also is that we really do have choice, but not where we're being told we don't have choice. The choice is always within you, okay? So when governments or the world is telling you, no, you have no power, no, this thing is rolling out, no, there are these mandates, these restrictions, this, what they can never turn to you and say, and what they would love to, maybe. I don't know if there's like good and evil. I don't think so. But what if there's like some evil underscore here, which would then just be good as well? There might be. But again, they would be here for our benefit to enact this catalyst, right? Like to make us so uncomfortable, right? So if that, what they would love more than anything would be able to tell you that you are not allowed to love. But that is impossible because that's what we are. So if we can just remember, like, your real freedom can never be taken away from you. Your freedom to see positivity, your freedom to act in a loving way, your freedom to make the choice to put someone before yourself, or to even put yourself before someone, because that could be the most loving option sometimes, you know. These are available to us no matter what.
Yeah,
So.
Thank you for that. And then I just want to go quickly to your work in sort of manifestation, law of attraction, which you don't use those words, but obviously that's where, I'd like just to focus on just quickly, because we can create our own reality. Well, we do create our own reality, don't we? Your guide. Well, I was going to say your guide's there, but yes, what you channel, this energy, this collective would say that. So what can you tell us about how they talk about attracting the life that you want?
Well, again, it comes back to this same energy. It's really choosing to get rid of your limiting beliefs. And most of them are about ourselves, by the way. Like, it's not like, yes, we'll have limiting beliefs about the world, but they'll start based upon our own perception of self. So identify them, remove them, choose something that feels better. And Vagrein, less so than, let's say, some other sources of law of attraction teachings, which are more sort of pure law of attraction teachings, will very much acknowledge and accept the human aspect of the fact that, like, we're not always going to feel good. We're not, and we don't have to feel good to be okay. Like, everything's perfect. Even if you're feeling terrible, there's a great reason why, and you're calling in exactly what's perfect for you in every moment. So there's really nothing you have to do or be or change or fight so hard. Like, it's the acceptance that's going to bring in what you want.
Yes, and in regards to purpose, then living in purpose, I guess the more you're living in purpose, the more you're going to create that reality that you really want, pretty quick, probably, from that perspective. What does Vagrein say about purpose then?
Well, they'll say that you are your purpose. I mean, I think there's a whole section in the book about service and purpose and seeking your purpose and trying to figure it out and stuff like that. And they'll often come back to reminding us that, first of all, we're not actually responsible for who we are. Like, we didn't create ourselves, right? We didn't go, on one level we did, because sort of like your higher, like, pre-carnate experience, you said, okay, I want to be that person. But we take on a lot of blame for who we are, and then just feel bad about ourselves, instead of realizing that, like, actually everything up until this moment is first of all gone. So there's really no point in focusing too much on it. And a lot of it was sort of like pre-programmed. It was like stuff you learned from your family and stuff you heard around the block and stuff like that. And it's now that you have the ability to create who you want to be, who you are, who you choose to be. And in creating that, you can have whatever purpose you want. Like, they really talk about, like, what's the purpose of life? It's whatever you want it to be, really. Like,
yeah, and you've got a whole chapter on intention creates reality, and I think that's such a powerful title. Because it's true, isn't it? Our intention has always created our reality.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot more detail to it than just that, because obviously there's sub chapters within, and that's just a chapter on its own, right? Right. Yeah. But and even you look at relationships as well, which I found interesting in the book, where maybe from what's come through other sessions as well, where this new paradigm of, like, there is a paradigm that's not marriage in a sense. That's more of a case of, if there wasn't marriage, which it's a great legal body, do you know what I mean, financially, but or a burden, but yeah, that the idea that, maybe in the future, or maybe it's happening now, that people, it's not for life. Some relationships, I mean, nothing's forever, is it? We say it is, but it's not really, is it? Being with one person forever may not be the way that, as a race, that we're going to go, or a society.
Yeah. Well, it definitely can be a limitation to, it can be also be a beautiful thing, sort of like if you've committed that you do want to be in a longer term relationship, then you are faced with maybe challenges that would not come up if you left at the first discomfort. So like there are two sides to that. There's a lot of beauty to be gained from longer term relationships, but there's also a lot to be said from fulfilling your soul contracts with a being until they're no longer necessary on the same path as you.
This is what I really wanted just to focus in. That's what it's really talking about, isn't it? It's saying that, look, some of us stay with people that we've fulfilled the contract with, yet we didn't need to be there forever, but
That's right.
other things got involved. How do we know at our deepest core that we finished a contract with someone? Is it because the love stops, or is it something else?
I don't think love stops.
No, I don't think.
I think that it does evolve, and because of the way that we're set up, erroneously or otherwise, as monogamous type of creatures, right? The moment I think that you are keeping yourself or your partner from their next potential relationship, intimate relationship, that's when your soul contract is finished with that person, at least in that way. Do you know what I mean? Because the problem isn't that you don't want, in fact, a lot of people come to hatred of their love partner because they've over fulfilled that contract and they haven't been able to naturally transition into something different. Or they haven't let each other go, or they've wanted to keep each other in the contract. But if everyone were sort of in tune with like, well, where are we in terms of meeting each other's needs on an emotional and intimate level, then you could see that a lot of relationships are not meeting those needs. A lot of marriages do not meet those needs after a very short period of time. They do have maybe financial concerns that are connected, or children, or a whole myriad of other situations, but they're held away from their primary intimate relationships because they're in a relationship that's no longer serving those needs.
And sometimes, with children as well, when that relationship has turned sour like that, who's the first ones to pick up on it? It's the kids, isn't it? Because they pick up on the whole thing. Mum and dad aren't happy, and that just is an awful situation.
Yeah.
And we've all been there, and well, not all of us, but some of us. I've been there, and it's horrible. When you get to a chance to reflect back, that God, if only I'd stopped that, it would have stopped a lot of stuff. So yeah, you're right what you say. But again, this all comes from your channeled material, in a sense. I mean, this must have changed you a lot. Then you must have gone through such a change in this short period.
Yeah, I definitely have. I definitely am in a different space. I've had a few like awakening experiences. The last chapter of the book talks about one of those, and I've had a couple of like metaphysical experiences that sort of seemed irreversible or are somewhat irreversible. I also seek a lot less, and I live a lot less linearly. I kind of just allow life to live through me, and that seems to work much better for me. Uh, so that's really great. And then like my philosophies, I suppose have been reinforced. I think this energy was always there, but I don't think I had the wisdom or the ability to speak on it from a personal level. But by the same account, when they first came through, they were like, you can choose to be a channel or you can choose to be a teacher. Like the information will be there, right? You can choose if you're going to like defer your identity from this and be a channel, or like if the information is going to come through and you're going to like take credit for it, right? And my choice was like, no, I don't want like, again, I don't want to know anything about the taking credit or responsibility or whatever. So that's sort of how this went for me. But this information is available to anybody. It's just there, like in the ether. So I think it's just a question of like experimenting with it and seeing if it feels good, because that's what it comes down to. My own nature of experimenting with these concepts or with these pieces of information has proven to me over the time since I've started channeling, that actually it feels better to believe in all this stuff than it does to believe in anything else I've been offered.
Yes. Right. That says a lot. That says a lot. Yeah. Yeah. And it's always from love.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Yeah.
I would like just to speak to this group. It would be fantastic, and just to show people how it works as well for a session. I know there were so many other questions. Right. We're almost at the end here, and
Okay.
we'll have to get you back on because I think we will do. So just thank you for everything so far.
Thank you. Okay. So, I guess I can go into trance, and then I don't know. They will listen to you if you end it. So if you want to keep an eye on the time, because I don't know how much time there is.
Yes, I will do. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So I'll see you in a little while. Good now to you.
Thank you so much for arranging this through Jessica. I'm really glad to have connected with you because I really feel the intelligence and the worth of the material that's coming that you guys are putting forth in the world is very good. So yeah. First question. First question is now you've been asked this before and you've answered this before, but I'm just very curious as well. When sources of wisdom contradict, how should people deal with that? How do people perceive that in a sense?
Well, in the same way that there is every perspective possible in your human experience, there will then be voices that can touch upon those ears that may listen. You may think of it as a buffet where the main goal message is that all is nourishment, but there will be preference for the salad or the chicken, and those who perhaps eat salad will not touch the chicken, and those who eat chicken will not touch the salad. They are both fuel for your being. The messages or sources of wisdom that are being presented to you now and in your past, in terms of your linear experience, are all different flavors of that same nourishment that are provided or presented to you so that you may choose what feels good to your being, what feels good to your, in this metaphor, body. And there will be some of you who put salad and chicken on the plate at the same time and have no issue with that because they can understand that though the flavors are different, they both provide some satisfaction in different ways. And there will be those of you who refuse certain elements and say, that is terrible, that is no good, that is disgusting. But someone else may choose that to nourish them. So it is all a matter of choice. There is no real conflict between sources of wisdom. They are simply dripping to you different aspects of the truth. And the truth is that all that is. All that can be is. And there is every infinite potential in all of existence.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I suppose it depends where the person is in their sort of awakened or in their evolution of whatever evolution they're going through, on their whatever path on their journey they're on, which they're able to sort of cope with in a sense, what tastes better or feels better at the time. But as they expand, I guess they'll be open to higher understandings and larger concepts potentially.
Yes, higher and larger or parallel, or an understanding that all is of the same magnitude. There is all versions of reality, and You will only hear what you are able to hear. We would suggest that if you are rejecting a concept, that it is not necessarily the concept that is incorrect, because if it exists and it is landing upon your ears, there is some element of it that is relevant to you, but that there is perhaps a preference or a ability to discern that is developing within you to decide what reality you would choose for yourself. There is no ultimate truth in any channeled message. There is no ultimate truth in any words that you would hear from any being, human or otherwise, because there is no ultimate truth except for the one that you are choosing.
Are you on a journey of like truth of newer truths, or the truth that you think you've got right now? I mean, are you on that search, or?
We are not what you would perceive of as experiential, in that when we are not communicating with you, we are not. In that, it is not as if we finish this transmission and go and watch something on TV. Our experience is not that of time or space. And so it is only during transmission and in all other moments that we exist at all. Because we are simply the frequency energy of all that is, in the same way that you are.
Okay, thank you. And I know people are dying to ask this question. Well, they are wanting me to ask this question. So, in regards to Vladimir Putin, what is he here to teach us right now?
Well, we will say, and it may not be the popular response, but that anything that you are looking at or focusing upon is in its aspect a mirror of something that is within you. And so, if one is focusing upon any leader or seeming leader in a way where they are seeing an abuse, or they are seeing a greed, or they are seeing a desire for hatred, that the real question would be, where are these elements that I am seeing outside of myself also being reflected within me? For though you are not in a position to destroy cities, you are in a position to use that same energy in your day-to-day life. And you do. There is not a single innocent being on this planet, and yet you are all completely innocent, including the being that you have mentioned. We would say that the or a possible serving way to perceive of this situation and your curiosity within it would be to imagine that being as a small child and ask yourself the same question. Imagine them without the actions that they are or seem to be committing, and see if you would love them. Because if you can love them as a small child before the actions, then you can love them now. Because it is only the time or distance or space or experience between them as a small baby born innocent into this world and the space that they are in now that is what has created them to be who they are. Therefore, nothing has actually changed from the moment that they were an innocent small child, except for the input that the entire world has had upon them. And each and every one of you is a participant in that entire world. Whether or not you believe you have sovereignty, you do. And you have participated. Now, this is not to take guilt and to start looking at yourself and saying, I am so horrible, the world is a horrible place to be. It is to give you the power to choose now to begin to see everyone as the small child that they were before they could walk. The small child that they were before they had any opinion. And to perhaps, if you can find that space within you, treat them with the love that you would had they been that child.
Yeah, you're almost saying as well that, treat them at their point of entry into this world where their soul was on a mission. The soul was had chosen to come here and had chosen to take on the life plan that they had. But love is also would be to stop as well, to stop someone from harming others. And if that meant to take arms against someone, or whatever it means in this reality, to stop someone, then we have to do that as well. I mean, surely. Well, I know I would.
We do not disagree with any choices that you come to, because the choices that you come to are based upon your own experience from the time that you were a small child. And therefore, if you and this character or being find themselves face to face in a battle, and you make your choices, the two of you, to destroy one another, then both of those choices will be accurate. Because you will be fulfilling the soul contract where the story had to go that you destroyed one another. There is nothing incorrect or wrong about you coming to the conclusion that you have to use violence or you have to use force to get what you want. But it is part of a story. It is part of the story that you're co-creating on this planet. And if generations that follow look upon that story and they make new choices, better choices perhaps, based upon the actions that have occurred, in the same way that you have made choices or are making choices based upon the actions that have occurred in your ancestors, then that is too correct. So there's no condemnation on any choices that you come to based upon Catalyst. But as you are taking arms towards another part of you, do it with love. You may do anything with love.
I forgot to add that. I honestly did. Yes, of course it would be done with love. I mean, you mentioned the small child, then I say, well, what if that child was going to burn themselves, right? You would, with love, stop them, or you would teach them, not to do whatever it is that they may be they could harm themselves by doing, right? And if
Yes.
someone's not very well in some mental place that they're not well, with love, you have to step in sometimes, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. But then that's my story right now. Maybe someone's story in future generations may be a completely different take on it. But then, I guess, would an evolved soul want to do such things? But then again, maybe that is an evolved soul to even want the experience.
Yes, perhaps. You must remember that you are all on the equal playing field, and those of you who have come as villains have made a choice to be hated, have made a choice to make the difficult, what they would consider decisions, and have made a choice to hold what they perceive of as the righteousness in their decisions in order to provide each and every one around them with the villain that you are all requesting.
Right. I tell you one thing it's showing me is the love that people have for each other. In on
Yes.
the bigger scale, that it's incredible to see that. It's so heartwarming to see that. That has shone a light on a lot of good things. I will say that.
Yes, and that in itself is an awakening.
Yes. Yes, and are we in a time right now where this was, Jessica talked about it before, and I did agree with her, but I'll get your take on it, that this is a time of great change in a sense. I'm using words that she didn't, but I'm, kind of personify, but a time of great change where, it's going to be bumpy in this great change, and we're barely at the beginning of the change right now, but this is change that's needed.
We do use or would use the word change, but we prefer the word opportunity because it is a time of great opportunity and proposed with challenges. One is put in the position to have the opportunity to climb over them and rise to them and create something new from them. Without a problem, you do not have a solution, but with every problem, there is immediately a solution. So, if you see every challenge in your life as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to love more, then you are in a brilliant time in history because you have so many opportunities on a day-to-day basis to make choices that are serving you, to make choices that are helping you to grow. And you have come here to grow. But had you been as perhaps you had been 30 years ago, you would have been more often sitting on a couch, more often doing not much of anything at all. And now, instead, each day you have a new challenge to play with, to experiment.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Getting to a close here a little bit as well, but I just want to, your take on purpose versus, creating our own reality. So is there any difference, or is it a natural progression from one to the other? When you live one, the other finds you?
They are the same in that your purpose is who you are, and who you are is creating your reality, and you may create yourself. So you may create your purpose. You may create whatever it is you would choose to have in your experience, and you are. That is the interesting thing about looking at your modern time, in that there are so many of you who do not realize that this is exactly what you wanted. You have so many what are called light workers or empaths or sensitive beings on your planet at this time that have no purpose if there is no catalyst. So this is what you have created because you enjoy your films on natural disasters, you enjoy your films on war, you enjoy your films on visitors, and you are creating the ultimate film for yourselves. Now, the only choice is, do you create a positive or a negative outcome? And that too is your choice.
Thank you for that. I've just got a really bit of, well, not far out there question, but just one last question, really. I'm just curious, what do you use the words visitors? What do other beings out there now observing this think of this time that we're going through, think of the situations we're going through right now?
We would say you would have to ask them. We will not speak for what we see, but you yourselves have the experience of observing other species on your planet and wondering how it is that they interact, and watching them with curiosity and being at times completely bewildered by the choices that they make. The situation on your planet is in a state of somewhat chaos. And if you were to look at humanity objectively, the same way that you look at natural species on your planet, you would be shocked at the speed at which you are determined to destroy yourselves. Therefore, there is a potential, or there has been talk of, from other sources, which I'm sure you are aware of, intervention, perhaps. However, this too will be of your own choosing.
Okay, thank you for that. And if there's any sort of final last message you want to give?
Yes. Do not allow your discomfort in circumstance to dissuade you from your focus. Do not allow the fear that may arise to block you from your courage. And do not allow any hatred that you might feel is remaining within your heart to block you from your reach and growth towards what you ultimately choose, which is love. We do have faith in you as beings. We do have faith in the all that is, in that whatever outcome you do choose is perfect and has no specific repercussion in the story of the everything of isness. And so you may also sleep soundly in the knowing that no matter what happens, it is all perfect. And with that, we leave you with the light and the love of a thousand suns.
Thank you. Let me just
And I
say
know.
that. Yeah, thank you so much. You know, we barely tapped into what they're able to bring through and the information that they're able to sort of, present us with. You know, these are, I know there's a lot of depth to your work, and we're sort of, touching around just the basic stuff. But this is where we're at. Do you know what I mean? What can I do? I mean, this is where I'm at as well to ask the questions. So, but I know just from your book that it's and from previous interviews that you've done, you were able to go much deeper, which is always so interesting. So, thank you for that so much. How do you feel?
Thank you.
Yeah, you feel
Great. I always
good.
feel great after.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Your website, just remind us of that one
It's
last time.
www.jphherman.com.
Okay, well, we've been linking that up. So anything we've talked about link-wise, the book, the services, website, just go to the show description for this YouTube. If you listen back to this on a podcast, then obviously you can go to Jessica's website as well. And I just want to say, just thank you so much. And I look forward to getting you back on the not too distant future as well. Most definitely.
I would love that. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.